Hi everyone, and welcome to the third video in my Getting Started series for the game B-17 Flying Fortress the Mighty Eighth. Now in this video I will be taking you on a tour of both the inside and outside of your B-17. As we go, I will highlight the controls that are accessible to you while at each location using your joystick, keyboard and/or mouse. Now some controls are exclusive to the keyboard or mouse, and these I will identify as we go through the tour. But before we start the tour, let me just highlight a couple of key items that are up on screen now. In the top left of the screen we have an overlay that provides some basic information including the current time of day in the game, along with the altitude, airspeed and heading of your B-17. Now this overlay can be a nuisance at times as it can obscure other things you may want to see. So to hide the overlay you simply need to hold down the control key and press the letter H on your keyboard. This in fact is a toggle control and is used to turn the overlay both on and off. We'll leave it off as we don't need it just now. The other key item on screen is the computer icon in the lower right. Now this icon is used to show when the currently selected view or crewman is under AI or manual control. To switch between the two you simply press M on your keyboard, and the image of the computer changes to that of a hand to indicate manual control. Again, M is a toggle control and simply pressing M again takes it back to AI control and the icon of a computer is displayed again. Now a key thing to remember is that this only affects the current view or crew member. All other crew members and B-17s remain under AI control. Also, as soon as you switch between interior and exterior views or between crew members, control will always revert back to the AI. Now this can be a little annoying when switching between the pilot and co-pilot when you may not want the AI to take over flying the plane, and in this case you need to very quickly hit the M key to switch back to manual control. Now another icon which isn't shown on screen here is that of the other aeroplanes that are either active in terms of your squadrons, your allied squadrons that will be supporting you, in which case we have here a squadron of P-38s and P-47s, and also any Axis fighters which are in the vicinity. And here we have some 109s, 3 squadrons of 109s. Now you can switch to any of these squadrons by clicking once on the icon of their plane. So we'll go to the P-38s here by left clicking on that icon. And here we are at the P-38 squadron. Again, if we move the mouse to the right hand side of the screen, we'll get the planes back up again, and we'll now go to the squadron of P-47s. And we'll do the same thing again by now going to one of the 109 squadrons. So we'll just switch back to the B-17s, which are always at the top of this icon list. Now another icon which is not normally displayed here if you're playing the game at normal game speed is actually the game speed icon. Now there are two forms of this. One is when the game is paused or unpaused, and pausing the game is simply activated by pressing the pause key on your keyboard, and in which case a pause icon appears in the bottom left. Again, this is a toggle switch, so pressing pause again simply restarts the game. You can also change the game speed, and that is achieved by using the home key to speed up time or the end key to slow down time. And I'll just demonstrate that now by pressing the home key once, and that doubles the game speed. Pressing the home key again makes the game speed to be 4 times normal, and home again makes it 8 times normal. Now an undocumented feature here is if you do press the home key once more, the speed actually does increase to 16 times, but the icon in the lower left still only shows 8 times. Now what we'll do is we'll slow down the game speed by pressing the end key, and we'll keep repeatedly pressing the end key until we reach normal game speed when the icon disappears. Now it's also possible to slow down game speed by pressing the end key again, and that takes us to half game speed, once more takes us to quarter game speed, and once more takes us to 8th game speed. There isn't a 16th game speed option. So we'll just press home again to speed game speed up to normal, to the normal rate. So now, without further ado, let's head inside our B17 and start the tour. And to do this, we simply press the F1 function key. In most interior views, there are 4 pop-up menus available. These are the crew menu at the top of the screen, the crew station menu at the left side of the screen, the view menu at the right hand side of the screen, and the compartment menu at the bottom of the screen. But note that this compartment menu is only available when you're in one of the compartment views, such as this one. Now the crew menu is used to monitor the current physical state of each crew member. It is fairly simplistic and it only shows 4 states. A normal image indicates the crew member is fine. A ghost over the image of a crew member indicates that he is spooked or panicking. A red cross over the headshot indicates that he is injured and needs first aid, but unfortunately it gives no indication of the severity of the injury, while a white cross indicates that the crewman is dead. Next up is the crew station menu, which can be accessed by moving the mouse to the left hand side of the screen. Now this is used to switch between occupied crew stations. Now there are 12 crew stations available on board the B-17, but only 10 crew members, and so only 10 crew stations can be occupied at any one time. Hence the reason there are only 10 shown in this menu. Now this menu is very useful to see if the cheek gun or the radio operator station are occupied, to determine where the radio operator is located, as he often moves automatically between the 2 stations. Now the 2 stations that are missing from here at the moment are the Northern Bombsight station, and that is because the bombardier is currently occupying the chin turret here, and the other station that is missing is the cheek gun, which is currently vacant and is often occupied by the radio operator. Now these stations can also be accessed via the keyboard using the keys at the top of the keyboard from the numbers 1 through to 0, and also the key to the left of the number 1. In my case that's an apostrophe key. So for instance, pressing the apostrophe key now, if I move my mouse away from there, takes me to the bombardier station. What I've done now is I've just jumped ahead to illustrate how the bombardier has now moved onto the Northern Bombsight for the bomb run, and so it is now showing the bombardier occupying the Northern Bombsight station. Another thing to bear in mind is that when you're in the compartment view, you will often see one of the crewmen highlighted with a white glow line around them. That indicates that that is the currently selected crew member. For instance, if I press the number 4 here to access the co-pilot, you'll see that that selection has now moved over to the co-pilot. The view menu can be used to switch between the various views that are available at each crew station in the game. These are the external view, where you actually leave your crew station and switch to the external view of your B-17, and this can be accessed using the F2 function key on your keyboard. The next view is the compartment view, which can also be accessed using the C key. The action view, which can be accessed using the A key, and the instrument view, which can be accessed using the I key. And there's also the window view, which can be accessed using the W key. Now, a couple of things to bear in mind here is that not all views are available from each station, and I will let you know which these are as we tour the B-17 in this video. Another view that is not available from this menu is one referred to as the alternative view. Now, only a few stations have this view available, and it can only be accessed by going to one of the other views for that station and then pressing the spacebar. And I'll demonstrate and show these alternative views as we go through this tour of the B-17. The compartment menu at the bottom of the screen, as I mentioned earlier, is only available when you're already in one of the compartment views. Now remember, switching to a compartment view is achieved by either clicking on the compartment icon in the view menu on the right side of the screen, or by pressing the C key on your keyboard. The compartment menu lets you switch quickly between any of the 6 compartments available, and I find it to be very useful when playing the game. And for instance, we can switch to the radio room by moving the mouse over the radio room icon here, clicking and switching to the radio room compartment. I'm just going to move back to the flight deck by again clicking on the flight deck section there. Now there is one other pop-up menu that's available, and that is the crew management icon rows menu. Now this is accessed by right-clicking on a crew member from any of the compartment views. So for instance here, in this rather damaged B-17 limping on its way home, we're going to right-click on the navigator to bring up the first level of the rows menu. And this is the Move To menu. This allows you to tell the selected crew member to move to another crew station. And the 11 crew stations displayed obviously exclude the one that the crew member is currently occupying. So for instance here, now I have the Move menu displayed. I'm going to left click on the cheat gun to instruct the navigator to move to the cheat gun station. And there we have it. I'm going to right click on him again and instruct him to move back to the navigator station. Now the rows icon menu has multiple layers, and that's accessed by right clicking on the crew member and then left clicking on the central icon. And the next level of menu that you see here is the first aid menu, and this displays the images for any injured crew members on board who need first aid, and you can order the selected crew member to give first aid to the injured crew member by left clicking on the image of the injured crew member. Here this is the Bombardier Paul Whitey, so I'm going to left click on him and it will instruct the crew member to go and give first aid to the Bombardier here. So after the first aid menu, another menu level is available by clicking on the first aid icon here, so I'm going to left click here. And then the next menu item is the repair menu. At the moment there's nothing to repair here, but this may include items such as unjamming the guns or unjamming the bombs. There is another level beneath this by left clicking on this repair icon, and here we have the use icon. And the use icon is used for various tasks, and what we can see here for instance is that the undercarriage has actually failed to go down. We'll have a quick look at the outside of the plane, and we can see quite clearly that one of the wheels on the port side hasn't come down at all. And so clicking on this tells this particular crew member to go and manually crank down the undercarriage. The other item here is the bail out icon, and this is used to instruct the entire crew to bail out of the plane. So this is a last resort measure, and this actually has a shortcut available to it on the keyboard, and that is by pressing Ctrl Shift B. Now under certain conditions, right clicking on an injured crew member will bring up an individual's bailout icon. Now this is signified by the bailout icon with a first aid icon, and is the only way you can bail an individual crew member out of the plane. The normal bailout icon bails out the entire crew. So this is useful if you believe that this particular crew member won't survive the journey back to home base, and it allows you to bail this crew member out over enemy territory to ensure that they receive sufficient hospital treatment so that they can survive the war. I suppose I should just take this opportunity to also just mention there are quite a number of different ways to select each individual crewman. Now when you're in a compartment view such as this, you can actually just simply left click on them and then either select one of the views associated with that person, or use the shortcut keys on your keyboard to access those views. Or you can use the crew station menu on the left hand side here to jump between crew members, and that's taking me to the instrument view for the navigator. Or you can select the individual crewman from the top here And let's go to the tail gunner by selecting Chris Mercier with the left mouse button. And that's taken us to the tail gunner position. And let's just return to the pilot. And so we have the bombardier, the navigator, and the pilot. And so we'll just press C to go back to the compartment view. In the next sections of this video, I'll be going through each individual crew station and highlighting the views that are available there, as well as the controls that you have available within each one of those views. I will not be covering at this stage how to operate those stations, such as doing the bomb run with the bombardier, or flying the plane, or going through the engine management aspects. This will purely be to highlight to you the various joystick, keyboard and mouse controls that you have available at each crew station. Now we're going to explore the Bombardier's Northern Bombsight crew station. Now currently we can see that the Bombardier is occupying and using the chin turret gun station. You can see the top of the chin turret gun controls here. So we need to instruct him to go to the Northern Bombsight. So we'll right click on him and we'll left click on the Northern Bombsight icon here. And you can see him moving the chin turret gun controls away. Now we can press the A key to go to the action view for the Northern Bombsight. And this takes us to the viewport view through the Northern Bombsight. And you can just see the AI there in search mode tracking the crosshairs over to the bombing objective location. Now just a reminder, I'm not going to show you in this video how to do a bomb run. I just want to go through the controls that are available when you're in these views. So in this view, if we switch to manual control by pressing the M key, that allows you to use the manual controls. Now the first one, which is of key importance, is the search control, and that's to turn on the search mode. And you access that by holding down the shift key and pressing K. And that turns on search mode and the light comes on here to indicate that search mode is active. When in search mode, that allows you to freely move these crosshairs around using the joystick to locate them on the bombing objective. And when you've got them where you want them, you need to very quickly hit Shift K again to come back out of search mode and to lock those crosshairs on the objective where you place them. Now there are a couple of factors which affect the movement of these crosshairs further, and that is an error that can creep in called rate, and that can make the crosshairs move up or down away from where you've set them. And the other error is the drift error, which can cause the crosshairs to move either left or right away from where you've set them. There are two ways to correct for that, and the first is to either move the joystick up and down in this view to correct for rate, and that moves this marker here, and this marker is an indication of the amount of rate correction that's currently being applied. So if you see up and down movement in these crosshairs away from your target, you need to move this marker by moving your joystick either up or down. To correct for drift, which moves the crosshairs left and right, you need to do that in the instrument screen, which is accessed by pressing the I key. Now drift correction is indicated by this needle here on this drift scale, and you can move this in one of two ways. You can either left click with your mouse on the needle and then drag it left and right, and I'm not going to do that because this is actually really difficult to do fine controls on using the mouse, and it makes very large movements in the amount of drift that's being applied, as you can see there. So I wasn't going to do it, and I did it. The other way to adjust that, and which is gives you much finer control, is to hold down the N key and move the joystick left and right. And as you can see, that provides for fairly slow and controllable movement of drift. Just focus on the needle. When you're finished with your drift adjustment, you can go back to the action view to make sure that this has stopped moving left or right. But again, I'm not going to go into the bombing run details here. The other item on this screen of interest is the red light, and when that comes on, that indicates that the bombs are being released. So if we go back to the instrument view, there is another control on this screen, which is this dial here, which is the mission altitude dial. Now I never normally use this. I normally have the AI commence the start of a bomb run, and the AI sets this to the current altitude. And normally during a bomb run you would never normally change altitude unless an emergency made you. But if you did need to adjust this mission altitude dial at all, then you left click on it and you drag it down or up to change the altitude. And obviously this needs to be set to the current altitude of the plane. Now the Bombardier's Northern Bomb Site crew station is only one of two crew stations that has an alternative view, and they can only be accessed from the instrument views from those crew stations. Now we're in the instrument view for the Northern Bomb Site. I can press the space bar to go to the alternative view, and this takes us to the Bombardier's instrument panel. Now nearly every item on this screen is actually active in the game, in that it's indicating the correct values or actually has a game control associated with it. So the airspeed and altitude dials are indicating correctly, all of the lights indicate the correct status, and all of the switches are actually active in the game and actually have a function. So I'll just go through those right now. Now the top switch here is the main panel switch, and it turns this entire panel on and off. You have a switch here to open and close the bomb bay doors. You have a switch here to arm and disarm the bombs. You have a switch here to turn the autopilot on or off, and this effectively turns the autopilot on for the Northern Bomb Site and takes control of the plane away from the pilot and onto the Northern Bomb Site. You also have a switch for each of the 4 internal bomb racks, and that's to either turn them on or off and make them active in terms of dropping the bombs when the bomb release signal is given. You also have lights indicating down here where bombs are loaded in each of the 4 bomb racks. And over here we have an intervalometer. Now if I just switch quickly to manual control by pressing the M key, I can now left click on this with my mouse and move this dial around, and this changes the interval between each individual bomb being dropped. And so I can make the bombs drop much closer together as a much tighter group, or I can make the interval quite large, in which case they'll be widely spaced out in time. There's also a salvo switch here. Now if I switch the salvo switch on, that has the same effect as if the intervalometer was reduced to 0. So having the salvo switch turned on, all of the bombs are released instantaneously and as a very tight group. The only other active component on the instrument panel here is the emergency bomb release safety switch, and this can be accessed by turning this panel on, opening the bomb bay doors, and then clicking on here to release the safety cover, and then clicking on this switch to release the bombs. And that has instantly salvoed all of the bombs from the plane. Now when you are in one of the alternative views, such as the Bombardier's instrument panel view here, the only way to get back to the other views is first of all to press the space bar. You can't just press, for instance, the A key to go to the action view. You can only go back to the instrument view by pressing the space bar and then using the A and W keys or whatever to go to the other views from here. Now the only other view that's available from the Bombardier station when operating the Northern Bomb Site is the window view, which is accessible by pressing the W key. And that just shows you a simple view out of the window. Now I'm just going to show you the Bombardier station when operating the chin gun turret. And you can move the Bombardier to that station by first of all going to the compartment view by pressing the C key, selecting the Bombardier by right clicking on him, and then selecting the chin turret icon, and we'll left click on that, and you can see that it has now brought the chin turret gun controls into play. Now the chin turret guns, like all other guns, have only 2 views associated with that station, and that is the action view and the instrument view. So first of all go to the action view by pressing the A key, and that takes you to the crosshairs view for the chin turret guns. Now we'll switch this to manual control by pressing the M key, and then you can move these controls freely around by using the joystick. And to fire the guns, you use the button on your joystick that you have either pre-configured for the firing of the machine guns, or you can use the keyboard shortcut that's set up for firing the machine guns. Now the other view that's available for you from any gun station, and that's the instrument view, so that's accessible by pressing the I key. And in this view, you get a view of the ammo box for that particular machine gun location. And hovering the mouse over the ammunition box will give you a pop-up which will tell you how many rounds of ammunition that you have remaining. So to access the cheek gun station, we'll first of all go to the nose compartment, and so we'll go to the compartment menu at the bottom of the screen here and we'll click on the nose compartment. And then we're going to instruct the bombardier, in this case, just for an example, to go and man the cheek gun station. So we'll right click on the bombardier and we'll move around and left click on the cheek gun icon. Like all machine gun stations, there are two views available here, both the action view and the instrument view. So if I now press A, seeing as the crew member who is active on that station is selected with the white highlight around him, I'm going to press A for the action view, and that takes us to the kind of standard machine gun action view, which is the view for firing the machine guns. And again, like the other machine gun views, if I press the M key to go into manual mode, I can move the machine guns around using my joystick. And similarly, I can use the button on my joystick or the keyboard key that's been assigned to firing the machine guns. And like the other machine gun views, pressing the I key takes you view to your ammo box, and hovering the mouse over that ammo box tells you how many rounds of ammunition you have remaining. So now let's review the navigator station. So let's access it slightly differently to how we've been doing it before. So we'll now use the crew selection menu at the top of the screen here, and the navigator is the second portrait from the left. So I'll left click on that portrait, and that immediately jumps us to the compartment view and pre-selects the navigator. Now this assumes that the navigator is occupying that station. He may actually be in another station, in which case it would have taken us to where he's currently occupying. In this instance though, he's at his correct and assigned station. So there are three different views associated with the navigator. I should correct that, there are actually four views associated with the navigator. There's the action view, the instrument view, and the window view, being three of the normal views. The navigator also has an extra desk view. So let's start off by going to the desk view, and we can access that by pressing the I key for the instrument view. And if we do go to the zoomed in view of the navigator's map, we simply press the escape key to take us to the navigator's desk view. Now in the navigator's desk view, it shows you your current airspeed here on this airspeed dial. It shows you the current direction on this radio compass. And everything else is actually a dummy graphic that has no function other than to give you a kind of view of what the navigator's desk might have looked like. If you do want to go to the map, which is the true instrument view, you can left click on the map over this side. And that takes you to the map, and I'll go through the controls accessible on there in a moment. So we'll just press escape to come back out of that again. On the right hand side here we have what's called the drift meter, and that is actually the navigator's action view. You can't access it by using your mouse from here, but you can access it by pressing the standard A key for the action view. So let's start off here and we'll go through the controls for the